In this video I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful Cricut project from start to finish, and I'm going to share lots of helpful tips and tricks as I go along. There are a few places in Design Space where you can find a project to make. The first place is on the home screen. There's a lot of projects displayed on this screen and it changes fairly regularly, so it's worth keeping an eye on this screen. You can also use the search bar if you're looking for something specific. So if you type in Valentine's, you'll see that you get a lot of results relating to Valentine's. If you don't fancy going through 8,800 results to look for something that you want to make, then you can also filter the results. To do this, you'll need to go back a screen by clicking on the arrow in the top left corner. And back on the home screen, underneath the search bar, you'll see that there are three green links: projects, images, and community. As we're looking for a project, we're going to click on projects. After clicking on projects, you'll see another screen and you can pop Valentine's in the search bar again, and you can see that the number of projects that come up has been reduced to 347. And if you wanted to, you could filter again by clicking on the All Projects menu on the right side of the screen, and you could select a category such as cards or vinyl, for example, or any of the others. You can also go straight to your canvas and look for a project there. So if you click on New Projects in the top right corner of the screen, this will take you to the canvas, and on the left side of the screen there's a panel, and if you click on projects, this will take you to the project screen. And you'll see that you can filter the projects in the same way as before. If you see a project that you like, you can bookmark it and save it for later. To do this, just click on the bookmark token underneath the project that you want to save, and you'll be able to find your bookmarked projects in the My Stuff tab, which is on the black banner at the top of the screen. Once you've done that, you just need to select the bookmarked tab and you'll see all your bookmarked projects. Once you've found a project that you'd like to make, just click on it and then you can see the details of the project. I've chosen this gorgeous card to make with you today as it uses three operations: cutting, drawing and scoring. In the details of this project, we can see the size of the finished project and the materials and the tools that we will need to make it. And if we scroll down further, we can see some information about how to cut it and put it together. It's not obvious from these details what size cardstock we need, but you will be able to see this on the canvas or on the Make It page. The information does vary on different projects, some are more detailed than others. At the bottom of the project details, you get two options. You can choose to customize the project or you can choose to make it. If you choose the customize option, this will take you to the canvas where you can see all the different elements involved in the project. And then you can also click on the Make It button at the top right of the page to go to the Make It page. But before we do that, let's have a look at the different elements in this project. I'm just going to use the zoom toggle on the bottom left of the screen to zoom out a bit so we've got a better view. And now I'm going to click on each of the different elements and space them out so I can see what size cardstock I'm going to need for each piece. Sometimes the projects have been all grouped together and you'll need to ungroup them in order to separate them. In this project, the envelope pieces have been grouped together, so I'm going to go to the top of the right panel and click on the ungroup icon. And now I can separate out the different elements. And if you click on each of the elements in turn, you'll see the size appear above them in a black box. Once a piece has been selected, you can also see its size by looking at the size boxes in the top panel. My grid is set to measure in inches, but if you prefer centimetres and millimetres, you can change it by going to the bell icon on the black banner and then click the cog on the top right of the panel. Then choose the Canvas tab and then select Metric. Your grid will now measure in centimetres and the sizes of your elements will be in centimetres. So to make this envelope, I'm going to need a piece of paper that is 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres or 12 inch by 12 inch. All the other pieces will fit easily onto A4 pieces of card or paper. Before going to the Make It page, it's a good idea to check you've got the materials that you need and to get them ready. To make the envelope, I'm going to use 2 pieces of 12 by 12 paper that go well together. And I've also got 3 pieces of A4 card, 1 in white, 1 in pink and 1 in red to make the card. Here's a quick reminder of the tools that we're going to need to make this project. You're going to want to use the blue light grip mat, which is ideal for lightweight materials. The green mat would be too sticky unless it's starting to lose its stickiness, and then you could use that for card but not for paper. 2 other tools that you might find helpful are the spatula to help lift your project off of the mat and the scraper to scrape off the leftover bits and pieces left on the mat. You're also going to need a fine point blade, which should come standard with your machine, a scoring wheel or a scoring stylus, and a pen. You could use a fine point black pen, or actually you can use any pen, and I'm going to use the black glitter gel pen. Once you've got all your materials ready, you'll need to go back to Design Space and you can hit the Make It button on the top right of the screen. This will take you to the Make It page where you'll be selecting the matte material and tools that you're going to be using. I'm not using any smart materials, so I'm going to choose on matte here. Once we've clicked confirm, we'll see our first matte displayed on the screen. And we can use the zoom toggle to get a better view of the matte. Design Space will automatically place your project in the top left corner of the mat, and this is where you'll need to place your piece of paper or card on your actual mat. You can use the scroll bar towards the left of the screen to see all the other mats. And to get a better view, you can just click on each mat. It's important to know that you must have the same thickness of materials on one mat. This is because the speed and pressure settings will vary depending on the thickness of a material. So for me, on this mat 4, I've got 2 thicknesses there. The top piece is going to be medium weight cardstock and the bottom piece is part of the envelope, which is from paper. So I'm going to need to move one of those pieces to a different mat. So to do it, click on the piece you want to move. So for me, it's the bottom piece. And then click on the 3 dots in the top left corner of the boundary box, and you'll see you'll get the option to move object or hide selected. I want to move it, so I click on move object. Then I need to select where I want to move it to. So I want this piece to go with the other envelope piece, which is on mat 5, which is the last one in the row here. You'll also see that the current mat that you're on is highlighted and it's got current written underneath it. Once you've selected the mat you want it to go to, click confirm, and you'll get a picture of the mat that you've just moved your piece to. And if you go back to your previous mat, you'll see that it's no longer on that one. Now you need to click back on mat 1. In the left panel, just to the right of each mat, you can see the operations that will be used for each mat. So for mat 1, we're going to be scoring lines and cutting. Now we need to get our mat ready for the first pass, which is the envelope. So we're going to need our 12 by 12 inch piece of paper or card, and we need to pop it onto the mat in the top left corner, just as it is on the screen. And now back in Design Space, click on Continue on the bottom right of the screen to move to the next screen. So the first step on this screen is to select the base material. As you can see, I've bookmarked the materials that I use regularly. There's also another tab to the right of bookmarked, and this shows you popular materials that people use. If the material that you want to use isn't there, you can go to the right and click on Browse All Materials. And if you click on the All Categories menu, you can select the type of material you want to use. So I'm going to select paper, and I'm going to choose the paper that I think is the same sort of thickness as the paper I want to use. So I'm going for a heavyweight copy paper. The next step is to load the tools and material into the machine, and Design Space will show us which tools to put in which clamp and when. So for this project, we don't need to put anything in clamp A for the moment. In clamp B, we need to put our single scoring wheel. But if you don't have a scoring wheel, if you go up to where it says Edit Tools and click on that link, you can then change the scoring wheel for the stylus and then click Apply. If you do this, you'll see that the screen has changed, and you now need to load your scoring stylus in clamp A and your fine point blade in clamp B. After loading the tools, Design Space tells us that we will need to load our mat and press the load unload button. So let's go ahead and load our tools and our mat. First up, we need to put our scoring wheel into clamp B. To do this, we need to line up part of the exposed cog on the drive housing with the cog at the back of clamp B on our machines. If you're using the stylus, then this needs to go into clamp A. After popping it into clamp A, give it a little nudge downwards until you can't see the arrow. Now we need to load our mat, and we need to make sure the mat goes underneath the two white guidelines. And then press the load unload button on the right of the machine. The machine will then measure the length of the mat to make sure it's the same as the one that you selected in Design Space. And if it's happy, the start button will start to flash on the right of the machine. If it's not happy, then you'll get a message in Design Space telling you what to do. After you've pressed the start button, your machine will move the clamp across to the right of your machine and check that you've got the right tool in place. Then it'll go ahead and score the lines on the envelope. Once it's finished, you'll see that the start button is flashing again. Don't press it yet though. Check your design screen for the next instructions. It will tell you what tool you need to put in which clamp. If you've used the scoring wheel, then you'll need to take that out and replace it with the fine point blade. If you used the scoring stylus and you already had your fine point blade in clamp B, then your machine will have finished and the unload button will be flashing for you to unload your mat. Once you've changed your tool, if needed, then press the flashing start button and your machine will go ahead and cut out the envelope. Once it's finished, your unload button will be flashing and you can unload your first mat. Now it's time to take our project off of the mat. After peeling off the excess piece that's not needed, I find it easiest to flip over the mat and to gently peel away the mat from the material. I find paper the hardest material to take off of a mat because it is so flimsy and it's quite easy to rip it or bend it. It's best to go as slow as you can. Okay, now we're ready for mat 2, so we need to go back to Design Space. On the left side of the screen, we can see that there's a tick next to mat 1 and mat 2 is now highlighted. And we can see that there are 3 operations for this mat: scoring, drawing and cutting. If you hover your mouse arrow over the mat, you'll get a better view of the mat. You can also click on the green edit link underneath, and this will mean that you can make changes on the mat. You can use the magnifying toggle at the bottom to zoom out and get a better view, and you can move your piece around the mat to a different position if you like. As with mat 1, we now need to select our base material. I recommend using a medium cardstock for this piece as it's a detailed cut, and lifting it off the mat could result in tearing if you're using a lighter weight cardstock. And in step 2, we can see that we need to have a pen in clamp A and a scoring wheel in clamp B. If you're using the scoring stylus, then your screen will look like this. Once we've put those in place, then we'll need to load our mat and press the load button. So let's go ahead and load our mat and our tools. As with the scoring stylus, once your pen is in clamp A, just push it down a little until the arrow disappears and you hear a click. Then you need to switch out your fine point blade for your scoring wheel. Or if you're using the stylus, follow the instructions on your screen. And now you need to load your mat as you did before. And when the start button flashes, you can press it and your machine will go ahead and do its magic. Once your machine has finished scoring and drawing, Design Space will prompt you to switch out the scoring wheel for the fine point blade. Once it's finished cutting, the unload button will flash, but before you unload, just double check that the machine has cut it through okay, and then press unload. If it hasn't cut through okay, then you can press the start button and it will do the cut again. When you're ready, press the unload button to unload the mat and gently remove your project from the mat as we did before. Back in Design Space, we can see on the left side that we've now got a tick next to number 2 and our third mat is highlighted, and we now need to select our base material. And again, I recommend using a medium weight cardstock for this piece. For For this mat in step 2, we can see that we don't need anything in clamp A and our fine point blade in clamp B. When we're ready, we'll load our mat and press the load button. And if you need a reminder of what size cardstock you need for this mat, hover your mouse over the mat in the left panel. This piece is approximately 7 inches by 5 inches, so I'm going to cut a piece of pink cardstock that is 7.5 by 5.5, so there's a bit of an edge around it to make the cutting easier. And as before, I'm going to place my piece of card in the top left corner of my mat as it was on the screen. If you haven't already done so, you'll need to remove your pen from clamp A. And as before, load the mat into the machine and then press start when it's ready and watch your machine do its cutting magic. When it's finished, I recommend checking that it's cut through okay before unloading. Now you need to take your project off of your mat, and again it's a detailed cut, so I recommend taking care so as not to tear it. You may find it helpful to use a spatula to help lift it off of the mat. And you'll need to use the scraper tool to remove the leftover debris from the mat. And you may need to use your weeding tool to poke out any bits that haven't come free completely. I would use more pressure on my cutting setting if I use this cardstock for a project like this again. Now we need to go back to Design Space to select the settings for mat 4. So I'm going to select a medium cardstock for this piece, and I'm going to need to put the scoring wheel into clamp B, which I will swap out for the fine point blade when Design Space prompts me to. If you're using the stylus, then you'll need to put that into clamp A and the fine point blade into clamp B. Now we can go ahead and put our card on our mat and our tools in our machine. This piece of card will be the insert of our card. The machine will score it down the middle so we can fold it in half and cut it out to size. A top tip is to keep an eye on the instructions in Design Space. It can be easy to get confused and hit the start button when it flashes before you've swapped out the tool that you need to use. Trust me, I've been there and done that more than once. Okay, now we can lift off the card from the mat and get ready for our 5th and final mat back in Design Space. As with previous mats, our first step is to select our base material. So for me, that's the copy paper. And I can see that I need to put my scoring wheel back into clamp B. And now I need to load my mat for the last time with the paper. Next, I need to load my mat into my machine with the scoring wheel in clamp B, press load, and when it's ready, press start. And then when the start button flashes, after the scoring's been done, I will swap out the scoring wheel with the fine point blade. And I'll press start again, and when it's finished, I will unload my mat. And now you need to take your paper off of your mat. I've increased the speed of this part of the video by about 750% because it took me about a minute and a half to get the paper off of the mat. Once all your pieces have been cut, drawn and scored, it's time to put it all together. You're going to need some PVA glue to stick it together. You're going to need the white card first and the pink piece. Flip the white piece over and apply glue to the left side of the card. And then flip the pink piece over and lay it on top of the glued area on the white card, lining up the shapes very carefully. Now take your red piece and fold it along the score line down the middle and apply glue just to the outside edge. Don't do the same as I did and put glue down the middle because you'll see that through the heart holes on the front. I decided to only glue 1/2 of the red card and adhere that to the inside of the front of the card, but you could of course glue the back piece as well to the inside back of the card, if that makes sense. My goodness, I absolutely love this card. I think it's really pretty. And now on to the envelope. So to make the envelope, we first need to fold the triangle piece at its score line, and then we're going to glue that onto the other rectangle inside piece. And now you're going to want your envelope piece, and you're going to want to glue this house-shaped piece to the inside of the envelope, lining up the rectangle to the centre of your envelope. Then you need to fold your envelope along the score lines into shape. You'll want to fold the two sides in first, and then you will glue the bottom piece to those two sides. Then you just need to pop your card into your envelope and give it to your Valentine. I really hope you enjoyed making this project with me. I've tried to give you as much helpful information as I can because I do know how overwhelming Design Space can feel. But if you do have any questions, and I'm sure you probably do, please leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Bye bye for now, and I hope to see you again next time.